Hey, real quick, if you like this video or any of the videos we've been putting out recently, GameLeap.com has tons more videos just like it, including some videos that are even higher quality, but I'm not gonna waste your time. If you wanna know more, do yourself a favor and wait to the end of the video and I'll explain it more in detail. But for now, hope you enjoy. I know for many of you players, you often hear the term meta thrown around. The idea behind a meta is that there's a de facto best composition that you can whip out in every single game, so there's automatically heroes that you should learn to have the highest chance of winning. While there are some possible games for funneling the meta, there are tons of things wrong with obediently following the meta, and you could be losing SR because of it. You see, ultimately meta comes from pro play, and at many ranks, it doesn't replicate that at all, and even the ranked environment altogether has some problematic things that differentiate it fundamentally from pro and scrim play. In this guide, you're gonna learn when going with the meta can guarantee you free SR, and when going against the grain can actually be better for your development as a player and help you get to rank after rank. With all that being said, let's just jump right into it, shall we? Okay, so the first thing that we need to define is what exactly is a meta. So the idea behind a meta is the most effective tactics available and the most effective characters that you can play for each and every situation. Much like metas in the past, whether it be dive, goats, shield break, the idea is there is a certain cast of characters, usually between 6 and 8 characters that are completely meta, and you need to be playing these characters in every single game to have the highest chance of winning. While meta can definitely exist, actually adhering to the meta in every single game you play can actually be costing you games because of a lot of different reasons. Meta is not only based upon pro play, but subjective to specific rank play, and taking meta at face value instead of applying it objectively to each and every scenario, rank, game mode, and a number of factors can actually cost you tons of games. With all that being said, let's break into our first topic. Where does meta come from? So like I said before, meta mainly comes from pro play or the highest levels of play. This is why a lot of the time, even what GMs play is usually not implicit of the full meta altogether. The best players in the game, the pro players, Overwatch League players, play the game more than just about anyone on the planet, and they have the highest level of skills that they're bringing to the table, including coaches that can help them find the most efficient strategies with each and every patch. Now, it could actually take a while for pro players to actually find what the true strongest meta is. Some of the most powerful team compositions in the past, something like Ghost, wasn't found instantly. It took trial and error and a realization that you actually didn't need to play any sort of DPS in order to have the most impact. Let's relay that to the information that we have now. Right now, we have a de facto double shield team comp that's built around shield break. This composition is based on tons of tier 2 and tier 3 play, but the Overwatch League pros haven't actually played it in any official games, and a lot of the information that they have is actually trying to remain hidden, so we don't know for sure if the meta will adapt. There's also a potential cascade effect of metas, and this is completely ignoring the fact that metas can be different depending on different maps and depending on different individual player skill set. Now, we already defined where meta comes from, so what does that mean for you as a player? The thing about a lot of different metas is there's different levels of skill required to play each and every meta. A lot of times, top 500 and Grandmaster players will try to perfectly copy the meta because some of them are pros themselves, or they can play at a mechanical, game sense, and positioning level similar to that of pro players. This also means that they have a mold to learn from, so they can watch the pros and see exactly what they do so they can try to replicate it and learn from it in each and every game they play. But there's something that you need to consider when playing your average game of ranked. This can happen at any ranks, Masters, Grandmasters, and any rank below. The problem is some team compositions require a certain level of understanding of the game, a certain level of mastery to actually be the meta comp. Let me break down this example to really help you understand. Let's say there's a composition completely built around pocketing a Widowmaker. Widowmaker is one of the most powerful DPS in the game, and being pocketed by a Mercy means she's hard to dive, she can duel a lot of DPSs in the game and get tons of picks. But Widow is an extremely high mechanically skill-capped hero. Unless you can hit the needed number of headshots that a Overwatch League pro can make, or something even remotely close, that's the only way that it gets value. Now, all of a sudden, you're in Masters, Diamond, Plat, or something else, and you do not have a Widowmaker that's capable of hitting those shots in any sort of similar capacity. This can have a completely cascading effect where Widowmaker is not the strongest DPS because of a lack of mechanical skill, and because of this, you would have way more impact playing something else, like Reaper, McCree, Junkrat, or any other character. This also means that maybe because Widow can't see the required amount of play, now all of a sudden Pharah sees play, and maybe because Pharah sees play, she counters the tanks, now Dive is viable. You can see how this is a giant cascade effect, and that's a problem looking at a meta without looking at it subjectively and trying to apply the meta that pro players use or Grandmaster players use and apply it to each and every game you play. Let's talk about the current meta right now that's built around Baptiste, Zen, Orisa, Sigma, Mei, Hanzo. This is the current meta, but even if you're watching this video in the future and this is not currently the meta, you can still take what I'm talking about into consideration. The fact of the matter is, if you don't have a Mei that can get consistent walls up, if you don't have team focus fire, if you don't understand how to use your Orisa pools and how to combo them, or how to combo Orisa pool with things like Mei ult, things like Gravitic Flux, or things like Dragon Strike, and you don't have the synergy that scrims actually provide or high-level comms provide, then this composition might be completely trash to something like Dive or something like a Doomfist. So summarizing this all together, this is why it seems incredibly weird for someone in Plat to say, hey, switch off Tracer, she's not meta, play something like Reaper, when the meta doesn't actually exist at that rank. The meta can't actually be played, and if it is played, it's not even played remotely close to how it's played at the high levels, so it's not really actually holding down strategies like a Tracer. In fact, maybe Tracer doesn't get the most amount of value she does against that composition, but the fact of the matter is, the enemy playing a single Brig actually does more to shut down the Tracer than the enemy playing the whole meta composition. I really want you to understand this concept. Playing the de facto best meta is actually not even close to as powerful as playing actual hero counters against the enemy's picks. For the majority of ranked games in Overwatch, playing something like Pharah Mercy into the de facto best team composition can be extremely powerful at completely shutting it down, because for the majority of ranks, Hanzo's, Mei's, and Baptiste might not be able to pressure a Pharah Mercy in the same way that top 500 or pro Overwatch Mei's, Hanzo's, and Baptiste can. So now you might be asking, moving on from that, when should you actually play the meta and what should you actually take from the meta in order to apply it to each and every one of your games? What you need to think about is, why does meta matter in the context and what creates the meta? For example, why is Orisa played in the current meta and why is she so powerful? Most of that is centered around two of Orisa's abilities, Fortify, which Fortify doesn't matter in this context. The ability that you really need to think about is Orisa Pool. Now, why is Orisa Pool so powerful? The understanding that you need to get across is the fact that you can displace enemies is incredibly powerful for comboing with abilities, securing picks, and winning teamfights altogether. An enemy that thinks they're behind natural cover, because natural cover is honestly incredibly powerful, and they get pulled outside into the open, this allows you to burst them down, get free kills, and it's frankly one of the most powerful abilities in the entire game right now. So you're understanding that even if you're playing Orisa in a random composition with tons of random factors, the Orisa pool can still get value. Also, something like a Hanzo or a Mei, a lot of these characters see play because of how pound for pound good they are in individual matchups. So Mei can straight up bully characters like Zarya, Sigma, Hammond, and even other DPSs by putting tons of pressure on them with her freeze. Hanzo can duel just about every DPS in the game. Baptiste's immortality fields is incredibly strong. So what you really need to do is look at what makes these characters strong individually and apply that to each and every game you play. Now, with all that being said, let's dig into the last core topic of this video. How can you use anti-meta to actually win free games? Well, I told you all the downsides of actually applying meta in any random context. Let's talk about how you can play anti-meta and how you can use anti-meta to win you free games. What you really need to understand is what's the capabilities of the people around you in your rank. What exactly are the players at your rank doing or not doing that is actually fundamentally different from the way that Grandmasters, top 500s, or pro players are doing with the same composition? This is why studying the meta can actually be really helpful for you, because you can understand the actual gaps that the enemy team is doing when they're trying to replicate the meta comp, but honestly not playing it to anywhere close to the effectiveness. Maybe you watch pro play and you see how they keep constantly comboing things like Orisa Pool, or they are constantly trying to get these giant Mei freezes and things like that. You can use that to your advantage because maybe you can play in a way that actually punishes a specific strategy by the enemy. Maybe the Mei isn't looking behind her, or she's getting really poor walls, or she's not actively trying to peel for her ally Zenyatta. You could play something like a Tracer, a Doomfist, and you could try to put tons of pressure on the Zen, and he's not getting the peel that he needs in order to stay alive. Being a Tracer and being able to kill the Zen every single fight can be a way that the whole composition comes crashing down. Or here's my favorite one that I like to do. It's incredibly easy to force out low-ranked Baptiste Immortality Field. Now, Immortality Field is one of the strongest and most important abilities in the entire meta right now, because it allows Baptiste to Immortality Field his team behind natural cover, heal them up to full while they can't get bursted, and get a really quick amplification matrix. But if you could easily just put a slight amount of damage into the Baptiste, put some fear in him so that he wastes Immortality Field, this can allow you and your team to push in really aggressively, because you can call to your team, hey, this Baptiste doesn't have Immortality Field. And guess what? A Baptiste doesn't have Immortality Field. If that character didn't have that extremely powerful ability, you could dive the enemy incredibly easy. Dive is all of a sudden very strong strong if they don't have anything that can help them sustain through the burst damage. They don't have something like a Brig that can brawl pound for pound or push divers away. So without something like Immortality Field, you could easily burst down something like a Zen, a Baptiste. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. If the Baptiste doesn't have Immortality Field discipline, the composition that actually counters dive all of a sudden is a victim to it. This is exactly what I'm trying to get across. So ultimately, if I want you to take away some things from the video, what you should understand is meta doesn't affect the majority of ranks, even all the way up to the highest ranks. Don't take meta as face value. There's tons of differentiating things that can actually mean that meta doesn't apply to your rank, including how difficult it is to play meta, levels of communication, maybe players on the enemy team or your team simply don't want to play meta, or they're not good enough at the characters in meta. So those are all things to keep in mind. Then I really want you to understand what you can take away from meta and why studying the meta is actually positive for you as a player. Understanding when the enemy team is playing the meta, but they're not playing it to the maximum effectiveness, and a lot of the things that the high rank meta composition would counter, the low rank meta composition might not counter at all, and also how for the majority of ranks, individual counters is way more powerful than trying to play a whole meta composition in order to have the most amount of impact. And honestly, what you can take away from all this and the individual mistakes that players make, like with the mistakes that I was talking about with bad Mei walls, poor peeling onto the enemies Zenyatta, ability to bait Immortality Field, and a number of various factors. The most important thing that you need to do is think critically about each and every game, try to do what you can to learn from the meta, but don't become meta slaves and follow the meta as a T, because for the vast majority of ranks, like I said, it frankly is probably not the most powerful strategy that you could be playing. Now, if you want to learn how to think critically about each and every meta and learn how to abuse meta to the maximum effectiveness, come check out GameLeap.com. I know I talked about some big meta things here, but frankly, meta is so dynamic and diverse that it's impossible to fit it in 1, 2, even 5 videos. So if you want to learn everything you can about meta and you want to maximize your effectiveness in each and every game, come check us out. And you don't have to take my word for it. We offer a 10-day money-back guarantee, so come check us out risk-free, and I hope to see you there. Anyways, I hope this guide has been extremely helpful for you. I know meta is a topic that people just throw around, so I wanted to break down some misconceptions and when you should and shouldn't apply meta to each and every game you play. I know that there will be a lot of questions from this video, so if you have any, please leave them in the comments down below. And if you want more follow-ups to this concept, you want to break down more aspects about meta, I would love to do that, but I would love it if you smash the like button and let me know, because that's the only way I know that there's actually interest in this topic. And if you have any other topics that you want me to cover, any pro guides, VOD reviews, or anything like that, let me know. I would love to make them. Anyways, that's all I have for you today. I'm Coach Mills, and until next time.